Thanks for joining me on this journey of joy, grief, and authenticity. In this episode, I want to talk about pets and specifically about the death of a pet and how difficult that can be. A lot of people know our story about our daughter Hollis and how she lived for 6 days, and her diagnosis of a fatal genetic disorder was completely a surprise to us. And we also were completely shocked whenever our dog Max died about 2 weeks later. And I've talked a lot about mourning people in our lives, and I think that the death of a pet can also be really traumatic and have a huge impact on your life. We had our dog Max for about 7 years, and since he was a puppy, and he had moved with us from place to place. He'd moved from Tulsa to an apartment here in Dallas to our house now, and he had gotten old after 7 years. He was starting to have a kind of a slow vibe. We loved it. He loved to just sit around and watch Netflix with us, and he was a good dog. He was a great dog. Max never got to meet our daughter Hollis, and we're always sad about that. I always wanted to bring her home to meet him. He did help me prepare those 9 months. He went with me on so many walks. Every single time we had a shower or a baby gift arrived, he was the one helping me in the baby room. In this room, he was the one helping me, and it was beautiful. He's my little sidekick. We left the house that Monday morning on May 15th to go to the hospital to have Hollis, and we said goodbye to Max, and we had some friends and family who were going to check up on him, and we were ready for the adventure. And he was home a lot by himself, but had people checking up on him, and we didn't know that it would change from a couple days to pretty much a week of us being not at home. We think over the course of that week he ate a rock, and there was a rock that was kind of a sentimental rock that had been sitting out in the living room, and we think while we were gone, he probably got a little anxious, probably got a little, nervous, wondering what was going on, and ate the rock. And he would do it all over again today, I will tell you that much. He loved to eat anything, and he could eat anything. It was crazy. So it was also crazy that there was something that he couldn't eat. We honestly didn't know what was going on. We knew he was a little sick. We came home a week later, and after Hollis had passed, we came back to the house, and we were so happy to just be with him again consistently. So many times we kept saying, at least we have Max. Oh my goodness, what would we do if we didn't have Max? At least we have Max. And those words still haunt me, because the whole time he was sick, and we didn't realize what was going on, and we didn't realize how much time we had left with him. At first, we thought he was probably he was starting to get sick, and some friends who had been checking on him had been telling us that he was a little sick. He'd been getting sick in the house, and didn't really know the extent of it. Nobody did. And then whenever we got home, we got to see more how sick he was. And actually, the day of Hollis's funeral, I remember thinking, he's pretty sick. We really need to take him to the vet, but we have to go to the funeral. And I remember trying to make a decision about if we should somehow, some way, fit him in to the vet, even though it just wasn't possible. And everyone we knew and loved, we wanted to be at the funeral with us too. So I remember thinking that we probably need to take him to the vet, that we couldn't really figure out what was wrong, and it had been going on for a little while. The following week, I took him to the vet, and they did some x-rays, and it was pretty clear that he had eaten a rock. It was stone, some kind of stone. So they did surgery and had to take out some of his intestines that had started to die. It was pretty bad. I still feel bad because in our sadness, we just weren't all there. And we knew he was sick, but we really weren't absorbing what was happening and how bad it was. So Max spent at least one night in the emergency vet location, healing and making sure that he got the right fluids he needed and was taken care of properly. And we brought him home, and we could tell he was in pain and frustrated. And even though we had medicine for him, and it was hard on him. It was so hard on him. We felt so bad for him, and we slept on the sofa with him one night, and it was really difficult to keep him from going up and down from the sofa. So I tried to sleep with him in this room, actually, and it was a comforting room for me because of Hollis. And also, I knew he couldn't get on the furniture here, so it was a safe place to know that he would stay on the floor and I'd be on the floor with him, and we'd stay close. It didn't last long. He was just really uncomfortable, and I was still really sleep deprived from many nights at the hospital, and honestly, not sleeping at home either, even after we came back from the hospital. And I finally decided that he should go to the hallway. And so we've got doors, and we could really kind of box him into the hallway with his bed and make it a safe place for him, and where he couldn't jump on anything. But he was pretty sad that he didn't get to be with us. And we were pretty sad that we weren't with him. And the next morning was Saturday morning, and we woke up, and I went in there to check on him. And mind you, we'd been up with him in the night, and I came back in there to check on him, and he was laying on the bathroom floor, and he was not moving, and he was blinking his little eyes, but he just was in so much pain. And so Jamin picked him up, and we put him in a sheet and carried him out to the car, and was just telling him how much we loved him, and we're gonna get him to the vet right away. And we drove to the vet, and Max died along the way. And I remember I was driving, and Jamin was kind of preparing me. Jamin could tell it was getting to be a really hard time and getting to be close. And so he told me to, kind of be prepared. And that's when I realized that I honestly, everything is so fixable. You just assume that people are going to fix things. Even though we just experienced Hollis's death, I really didn't think that our dog would die too. And I was talking to Max and telling him how much I love him, and I was like, Jamin, crawl back there and love on him and hug him, and I'm driving, and Jamin's like, no, you would have to pull over, but we need to get there as fast as we can. And so we got there, and as we were approaching some stoplights, I could tell that it was awfully quiet back there, and I had a pretty good idea that he wasn't with us anymore. When we arrived at the vet, Jamin and I opened up the back door to see Max, and he was gone. And Jamin ran inside, and I just I lost it. I lost it in the parking lot of the vet, and it was actually right next to Nothing Bundt Cakes. So it was a Saturday morning, and everybody was getting their cake on, and I looked like a crazy person. I was still in my sweatpants that I'd been sleeping in. I looked crazy, and I was acting crazy. They discreetly asked me to drive around to the other side, to the back of the vet, but it was one of those moments where it'd been a horrible 2 weeks, and then this, and I just never could have imagined that we would lose Max in addition to Hollis. And, it's one of those things where people talk about puppies and babies and, the heartstrings, and it is so many heartstrings. And then something like this happens, and it just cuts those heartstrings in half. And they cremated him, and now he sits on the mantle next to Hollis. He was a big dog, so his remains are large. He needed a really large urn, and she was so tiny. This is really important because people lose their pets every day, and it is hard. You've had them for years. You've been around them more than people, more than your colleagues, more than your spouse sometimes, and to go without this dog is a big deal. It's sad, and it's okay to be sad about it. And in fact, sometimes Jamin and I can sense when one of us is sad, and we'll ask, "Are you?" It's sad that we have to ask, but we'll ask, "What are you thinking about right now? Are you sad because of him or sad because of her?" And we always know if we ever start a sentence with he or she, we know that he is Max. It's always Max. And if we hear she, then we know that it's Hollis. We don't even have to say the name sometimes. I know a lot of you guys have probably experienced the loss of a pet, and specifically a dog, and it's really hard. And my heart goes out to you. I know society doesn't always see it the same as the death of a person, but to us, they are a person. Thanks for joining me on this journey of joy, grief, and authenticity. And thanks for listening to my story about our sweet dog, Max. And if you've got a story that you'd like to share, I'd love to hear it. This is a great place to remember our loved little pets that we miss so much.